Chicago, 1956. We're introduced to an elderly man named Leonard Burling. While he owns a modest clothing shop, we learn that Leonard is not a native of the United States. He is a British citizen who immigrated only a few years ago. Before his move, he spent decades working in the most prestigious fashion houses in London. After leaving England for personal reasons, he decided to settle in Chicago, opening his own bespoke tailoring shop. Later, he hires a young woman named Mabel to work as his assistant. Leonard mentors her, explaining the intricate secrets he applies to craft the finest garments. He teaches her that the very first step is measuring, and the most critical aspect is taking those measurements with absolute precision. Furthermore, she needs to understand exactly who she is making these clothes for before she ever cuts the fabric. Mabel assists him in the front of the shop, greeting customers and assessing their needs. Meanwhile, Leonard executes the difficult technical work. He takes measurements with intense focus, studying his clients deeply. He tries to understand them, to know how to provide the service they require, what exactly they love, and more importantly, what they wish to hide.
Over time, Leonard's shop gains a rapid reputation in Chicago due to the exceptional quality of his work. The town's wealthy families become regular patrons, relying on him for their wardrobe. Among his most notable clients is the Boyle family, a powerful and highly influential organization in Chicago. The Boyles visit the shop intermittently, sometimes to commission suits and other times to collect messages sent to the shop's Dropbox. We learn that Leonard installed this mailbox intentionally, offering it as a convenience for customers to leave messages, but the truth is that this box serves a completely different purpose. One day, Richie Boyle, the only son of the Boyle family patriarch, arrives at the shop to collect messages from the Dropbox, accompanied by his right-hand man, Francis. Leonard remains calm and absorbed in his work, showing no interest in their presence or the messages they retrieve. However, Richie engages him, asking if the suit Leonard is working on belongs to his father. When Leonard answers no, Richie asks who owns it. At that moment, Francis is flipping through the mail and discovers a letter sent from a syndicate of criminals known as the Outfit. Because this letter contains highly sensitive information, Richie asks Leonard to step outside as they need to discuss a critical matter privately. While Leonard waits outside, he notices a package on the desk and asks Mabel about its contents. Mabel reveals a small gift inside, a snow globe featuring Big Ben representing London. She explains it was a gift from someone she knows. We learn that Mabel loves collecting these snow globes featuring famous landmarks from around the world, like Paris, London, and Barcelona, because she dreams of traveling outside Chicago one day. She tells Leonard she is surprised that he had the opportunity to live and work anywhere in the world, yet he chose to settle in Chicago and call it home. When Leonard asks her what is so bad about Chicago, Mabel admits she dislikes the city and is determined to leave it behind. She tells him of her dreams to visit Madrid, Barcelona, Morocco, and Paris. After Richie and Francis conclude their business and leave, Leonard and Mabel return to work. As they sit together, Leonard speaks to her privately. He mentions that a man working in the watch shop next door asked for an introduction to her. Mabel dismisses the topic, stating she is already in a relationship. Piece by piece, Leonard deduces that Mabel is involved with Richie Boyle. He has noticed the way they interact in the same space and the subtle, nonverbal signals passing between them. As he folds fabric, Leonard warns Mabel, telling her she needs to be more careful. He explains that Richie comes from a dangerous family, a Mafia clan known for violence and the constant use of weapons. Mabel assures him she understands the danger of the Boyle family. She reveals she has lived her whole life around people like them. She says that when she needs to make a dangerous man back off, she simply looks him in the eye and pretends she is one of them, understanding them perfectly. During their conversation, Mabel tells Leonard she knows he wants her to follow in his footsteps, to train under him and become a master tailor. However, she tells him this is impossible as she plans to leave this place eventually. Leonard assures her she can be herself. He does not need her to mirror him in every way. As they talk, Leonard notices she is not folding the fabric correctly. He calls her attention to it, stating she will not earn a bonus unless she improves her skills, particularly in the fundamentals like folding fabric with precision. After closing the shop for the night, Mabel heads home, but Leonard stays behind, working late into the night.
Exhausted, Leonard falls asleep at his desk and suffers a nightmare of fire and disaster. He wakes suddenly to the sound of the shop door opening. He recognizes the voices of Mabel and Richie, who have entered to spend private time together. This confirms Leonard's suspicions definitively. The two are in a relationship. While they talk, Richie shares information regarding Francis, his adopted brother. He tells Mabel that Francis is convinced someone within the Boyle organization is a mole, leaking secrets to a rival mafia gang called La Fontaine. Richie confesses frankly that he dislikes Francis. He admits he hates him because his father, Roy Boyle, trusts Francis more than his own biological son. Richie does not view Francis as family. He sees him as an outsider who merely saved his father's life once. He believes his father's loyalty to Francis stems from a debt of gratitude, yet Roy feels genuine affection for the boy, something Richie resents. Mabel tells him not to worry about Francis, dismissing it as Richie making a big deal out of nothing.
All the while, Leonard is listening from the back room, standing behind the door eavesdropping. He accidentally drops a pin. The sharp sound alerts Mabel and Richie to his presence. Leonard reacts instantly, returning to his chair and feigning sleep. To avoid a confrontation, Mabel takes Richie and they slip out of the shop so as not to wake Leonard. The next morning, Mabel arrives for work and they begin receiving customers and fulfilling orders as usual, with letters continuing to flow in and out of the shop. Days later, Richie and Francis return to the tailoring shop to collect their mail as per their weekly routine. On this day, they discover a new package from The Outfit containing a letter and a recording tape. Upon seeing this, they rush out immediately to inform Roy Boyle. Later that same day, Richie and Francis burst back into Leonard's shop, terrified. Francis is supporting Richie, who has been shot in the stomach. Francis checks the shop is empty before dragging the wounded Richie into the back room where Leonard works. They demand his help. Francis orders Leonard to apply pressure to Richie's wound and hold it tight. He berates Richie for hesitating to shoot the men who attacked them. Francis warns Leonard that people will come looking for the bag containing the tape, and they must secure it immediately. He explains that many powerful people are hunting for this tape, and if they find it, Francis is a dead man.
Moments later, Francis calls Roy Boyle. He reports that he and Richie were ambushed by the La Fontaine gang. He informs Roy they are holed up in Leonard's shop and that Richie is critically injured. Roy replies that he is on his way to extract them. When Richie begs Francis to take him home, Francis refuses, citing Roy's orders to wait. Richie and Francis argue violently. Francis states clearly that he works for Roy, not Richie. He explains that no one knows where their mob doctor is, and while the police will surely come, it will take too long. Seeing Richie bleeding out, Francis commands Leonard to stitch the abdominal wound to stop the hemorrhage. Leonard hesitates, explaining he is not a doctor and has never treated a gunshot wound. However, drawing on past experiences in high-stress situations, he finally agrees. The procedure is grueling, and Richie loses consciousness. Leonard stitches the wound. Despite the chaos, he manages to close the incision and staunch the flow of blood, his hands remaining rock-steady even as Richie's body shivers.
Once the wound is closed, Francis secures the cassette tape in the bag. He orders Leonard to watch Richie while he completes an errand. Leonard refuses, insisting Francis take Richie with him. He tells Francis clearly that he wants no part of the Boyle family's violent affairs. Leonard wants to remain isolated, separating his legitimate business from their illicit activities. But Francis counters that Leonard is already involved. He is now part of the family. Francis argues that Richie must stay, explaining that Leonard's shop is the only safe harbor left. Francis then reveals he must leave to find a cassette player. He explains the tape contains evidence of illegal activities regarding a Boyle family member. He suspects someone close to the family is working with the FBI and has planted a bug in their meeting place. He adds that he and Richie had arranged to listen to the tape elsewhere, but were ambushed by La Fontaine gunmen before they could act, resulting in Richie's injury. With multiple mafia organizations hunting for this tape to destroy the Boyles, Francis must hear it immediately to identify the traitor. Francis warns Leonard that the tape must be protected at all costs. He assures Leonard that Roy will arrive in a few hours. When Leonard asks what to do if the police arrive, Francis coldly replies that he should get rid of them. After Francis leaves, Leonard notices blood on a suit he was crafting. He quietly replaces the stained panel with fresh fabric. Shortly after, Richie regains consciousness. Weak but sincere, Richie thanks Leonard for saving his life. He asks for water, which Leonard provides. Richie asks for Francis. Leonard explains Francis left to find a tape player and mentioned he is convinced the traitor is family. Leonard muses that Richie's father was a good man, recalling that Roy was his very first customer. Richie remembers the day well, recalling his father coming home excited about a tailor from London, explaining that Roy cares deeply about appearance, often saying that a well-tied tie is the first serious step one can take in life. Leonard then asks Richie if he suspects anyone. Richie claims he suspects no one. Leonard presses him, insisting he must have a suspect, and that the culprit is surely someone very close to the family. Leonard then sits calmly, sewing with rhythmic precision, and casually confesses that he is the one who transferred information to the enemy. He helped the federal agents plant the bug. Richie pauses, then bursts out laughing, assuming Leonard is joking. Leonard chuckles along and continues sewing as if he said nothing. Richie changes the subject, unable to believe the confession. He asks why Leonard would make such a joke. Leonard asks why Richie thinks he couldn't be the traitor. Richie replies that Leonard is just a simple tailor. It's impossible for him to interfere in gang warfare. Leonard corrects him instantly. He explains he is not a tailor, he is a cutter. The roles are distinct. Anyone with a needle and thread can call themselves a tailor, but a cutter requires years of study and rigorous discipline. Leonard details his extensive training at a luxury fashion house, spending years as an apprentice before earning the right to open his own shop. Richie asks why he moved to Chicago. Leonard explains he fled the war. After the war, men in London could not afford quality, and a new trend called blue jeans began to spread. Leonard explains that soon people will chase trends, but his craft offers permanent value, not fleeting fashion. He tells Richie he hopes his cousin is right. Richie then clarifies that Francis isn't family. He is a stray dog Roy picked off the street. Leonard circles back to Francis, suggesting that Francis's obsession with finding the traitor means Francis is the traitor. Leonard tells Richie not to fear Francis, speaking with the confidence of a man manipulating the board. Francis returns. Before he can speak, Leonard calmly tells Francis that Richie suspects him of being the rat and that Richie looked in the bag. Leonard is now intentionally playing them against each other. Richie, influenced by Leonard's seeds of doubt, demands to know why Francis escaped the ambush unharmed while he was shot. Francis claims luck. When Richie asks where he went, Francis says he found a player and intends to take the tape there. Richie insists on going. Francis refuses, citing Richie's critical condition. Francis insists on playing the tape now, but Richie stops him, demanding they wait for his father. Richie implies Francis wants to ensure Roy never hears the tape. Francis declares he is taking the tape now. The argument turns into a physical brawl. During the struggle, they discover the bag is empty. Richie draws his gun on Francis, demanding the tape. Francis calls him stupid for thinking threats will work, insisting he remains loyal to Roy. Richie admits he has hated Francis since day one. Francis retorts that he is the one who cleans up Roy's messes while Richie creates them. In a moment of distraction, Francis draws his weapon and shoots Richie in the neck, killing him instantly. Francis stands over him, stating Richie didn't die because of a mistake, but because he was weak. He shoots the corpse again. Leonard freezes in shock. Francis demands the tape from Leonard. Leonard claims ignorance. Francis frantically searches for the tape Richie hid, but finds nothing. Roy Boyle arrives with his enforcers. Francis panics, begging Leonard to hide the body and stall Roy so he can clean the blood. Francis scrubs the floor while Leonard opens the door. Roy thanks Leonard for his loyalty. By the time Roy enters the back, the blood is gone. Francis invents a cover story. Richie took the outfit tape and went to hunt down the gang. Roy demands to know why Francis didn't follow. Francis claims Richie refused to listen and ordered him to wait for Roy. Roy calls Richie repeatedly with no answer, his anxiety growing. Francis suggests they go search. Roy orders Francis to search while he waits at the shop in case Richie returns or calls. Francis hesitates, fearing Roy will find the body, but eventually leaves. While waiting, Roy converses with Leonard. He admires his suit and asks why Leonard came to Chicago. Leonard repeats the blue jeans story. Roy chuckles, calling it a smart answer, though he is unsure if he buys it. Roy draws his weapon, calling it his tool. He compares his victims to the scraps of fabric cut away to make a suit, implying violence is necessary to shape his empire. He explains how he built loyalty and his territory with the gun. Roy then explains the outfit,
the world's largest crime syndicate. He reveals the Boyles are the only ones willing to fight LaFontaine, prompting an alliance. The outfit provided a recording to help identify the Boyle traitor. Leonard feigns surprise at Roy sharing such secrets. Roy reveals he knows Richie never left. Richie's coat is still hanging in the shop, and he would never brave the Chicago winter without it. Roy knows Leonard is lying. He demands the truth, and his man holds Leonard at gunpoint. Leonard claims Francis warned him that speaking the truth would put him in danger. Suddenly, Francis enters holding Mabel at gunpoint. Roy demands answers. Fearing for Mabel, Leonard invents a new lie. Richie felt ashamed that Francis killed the attackers while he got shot. Leonard claims Richie went to face LaFontaine alone to prove his worth to his father. Francis corroborates that Richie stopped by. Roy asks why Francis has Mabel. Francis claims he suspected Richie went to her apartment. Mabel denies knowing Richie's location. Francis points out a bloodstain on Mabel's carpet. Mabel calls it a lie. Roy realizes he knew Mabel's father and begins aggressively interrogating her. Francis suggests Mabel is the traitor due to her relationship with Richie. Leonard defends her, citing their long history. Francis begins beating Mabel to force a confession. Leonard tries to stop him. Roy and Francis drag Mabel into another room, promising to clean up later. Suffocating, Leonard tries to step outside. Francis stops him. Roy declares no one leaves until Richie is found. Leonard pleads exhaustion, telling Roy to do whatever is necessary to find his son. He empathizes with Roy, describing the feeling of the ground slipping away when a loved one is missing. Leonard confesses the blue jeans story was a lie. He reveals he had a wife and daughter who died in a fire. He views Mabel as a surrogate daughter and cannot watch her be destroyed. The phone rings. Leonard answers, telling Roy it is Richie. He claims Richie is hiding from LaFontaine and needs extraction from a specific location. Roy mobilizes his men. Francis elects to stay behind to watch the captives. Roy agrees and departs. Once Roy is gone, Leonard reveals the truth. He gave Roy a false address to lead him into a LaFontaine ambush. Leonard reveals Mabel is the traitor. She used Richie to gather intelligence and sold it to LaFontaine to fund her dreams of travel. Knowing the Boyles would eventually catch her, she approached the FBI for protection, planting bugs to take down the family. Leonard knew all along but stayed silent, understanding her motivation was escape, not malice. Francis is stunned. He asks about the tape. Leonard admits he hid it to protect Mabel. Mabel realizes Leonard's silent protection, but insists she can handle herself. Leonard proposes a gambit. Mabel calls LaFontaine and offers up Francis. Francis refuses to betray Roy. Leonard forces his hand. Either Roy returns, finds Richie dead and kills them all, or Francis cooperates. Terrified of Roy, Francis allows Mabel to call. She offers LaFontaine a trade, the tape, for money. Meeting in 1 hour. LaFontaine arrives. Francis instructs Leonard and Mabel to use a signal during the exchange so he can ambush LaFontaine. The gang leader takes the tape and pays Mabel. Mabel and Leonard immediately betray Francis, revealing his hiding spot. Francis bursts out to kill LaFontaine, but his gun clicks empty. Leonard had tricked him. LaFontaine's men riddle Francis with bullets, killing him. The gang departs. Leonard then reveals the final layer of truth to Mabel. He recorded the tape himself. He planted the fake outfit package to manipulate the Boyles. The tape LaFontaine bought is a forgery containing only Leonard's voice. The real recording of today's events is with Leonard, intended for the FBI to take down both the Boyles and LaFontaine. He urges Mabel to take the money and see the world. She asks him to join her. He refuses, telling her not to waste her youth on an old man. She bids him farewell and leaves. Leonard douses his shop in flammable liquid and sets it ablaze. Suddenly, Francis, clinging to life, wakes up and shoots Leonard in the arm. Out of bullets, Francis grabs a knife. Leonard finally reveals his true nature. He admits he was once a violent enforcer just like Francis. He rolls up his sleeves, revealing arms covered in tattoos. He explains he fled to London to escape a grim order from his boss, found love, and tried to live a normal life. But his past found him. They burned his house, killing his wife and daughter. He fled to Chicago to restart, only to find the Boyles on day 1. Francis lunges. Leonard sidesteps and drives his shears, the tool of a cutter, into Francis's neck, killing him for good. Leonard walks out of the burning shop, leaving Chicago and the ashes of his past behind to begin again.